my channel. Well, a blind item popped up and noticed it a day or so ago. And we're going to look at that and we're going to break it down and we're going to come to some conclusions. Here's the blind item. The ex of the royal pedophile thought they would be getting remarried once the mum died. She's in for a surprise. Will she retaliate? Will she talk about how at least one of the kids was forced to spend time alone with the dead pedophile in exchange for much needed money? That's pretty explosive. Well, let's start at the beginning and talk about Sarah and Andrew. There's been speculation for years that once Prince Philip and the Queen died, that they would possibly remarry. Don't forget, since I think maybe the first year or so of their separation, they lived apart. Well, Sarah was having all kinds of money troubles. It could have been 2 years, but since then, she has moved back in with Andrew, and they've been living together at Royal Lodge for at least the last 20-odd years. And over the years, there's been speculation in the press that once the parents died, that they could remarry. You see, because of Sarah's actions with her whole toe-sucking financial advisor incident that hit the papers and she was instantly banished from Sandringham, Prince Philip wouldn't even be in the same room with her. He despised her after that. If she was coming to Sandringham with the girls to see the Queen over the holidays for a day or two, Prince Philip would bugger off to Wood Farm or even back to Windsor to avoid her. So there was no hope of them ever getting together if that were the intention as long as he was alive. So people have been saying, well, they're both dead now. Maybe this is an opportunity for that to happen. And I think, given the situation in the last year, this is what Sarah was thinking too. 6 months ago or so, in February, Sarah purchased a house in, I think, Mayfair in London for $6 million. Now, at the time, she was saying, oh, it's for security for her children's future, for the girls. They don't need her $6 million house. They don't need their parents' money. They're well married to very rich men. They don't need Andrew and Sarah's money. Then why would she buy the house? Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'm thinking. I was thinking, at the time, Philip had been dead for, 8, 9 months already. And I really think that the members of the royal family knew something was up with the Queen's health as far back as that time. Because remember the Remembrance Day ceremony in February when you saw Camilla, Kate, and Sophie on the balcony there, and the Queen did not make an appearance, and they looked like the life had just dropped out of them. They looked like they'd been kicked in the gut. And I think that it was around that time that they knew of the Queen's illness. I think perhaps this was kind of the first when they were just learned about it. And I think that's why those pictures were so poignant and awful, and I think that's when it all began. Well, it also happens in February. This is when Sarah buys the house. I think she was thinking, okay, now the gateway's open, things have loosened up, we can get married. And I think she was also thinking, should something happen to the Queen, knowing the animosity that Charles and Andrew have for each other, she probably figured, and even the press speculated, that the Yorks were going to be thrown out of Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate. And as it and so I think this was an impetus for Sarah to buy the house, because she was thinking, oh, we could get remarried. We have the house. We have a place to live. Just set up all over again. We're going to get kicked out of Windsor. She was, in her own way, I think, trying to prepare for the future, but holding some pretty big assumptions about what may happen, and she miscalculated. Now, apparently, what has happened is that the Queen made some kind of special allowances before her death to extend the lease to Andrew so that he doesn't have to leave Royal Lodge, at least for the time being. I'm not sure of the details, but Charles is unable to kick him out, basically, because of something the Queen did, made some kind of an arrangement that they could keep Royal Lodge. So Sarah's bought this house for nothing. And at the time that she bought it, there was huge backlash in the press. They had interviewed the woman that they had bought their $16 million chalet in Verbier, Switzerland from. Remember all that? He still owed her something like $8 million and hadn't paid it. At the time, things with Virginia Dufresne were just heating up. The court case had been approved to go forward, and at the time we didn't know it, but people were assuming that perhaps Andrew was going to be forced to testify at the trial. And so the woman that owns the house in Verbier, that she sold it to them, but they still owed her millions of dollars. At the time, she settled with them. They owed her $7 million, I think. And she settled for much, much less, like $2 million, just to get it off the books. Because in her mind, she was thinking that Andrew was up against this big court case, and she quoted saying, you know, I thought he could be going to jail and I'd never see any money. So she settled for much less to sort that out. By the way, the house now that Andrew and Sarah own has been up for sale twice. It's never sold, or they've never gone through with the sale, so they still own it. But this woman, the original owner, that took a cut rate deal from Andrew, was outraged in February when she saw that Sarah bought a $6 million house in Mayfair. She said, where did she get the money for that? Now, we do know Sarah's been writing books, and I honestly haven't read them, but in the last couple of years, she has landed some good book deals for something like, 10 more books, this kind of thing. So she's gotten some money. She's at, whether they're good or not, I don't know. But she's making some money. And there's even talk that one of the books, I think the first romantic novelty thing she put out here not too long ago, maybe a year or something, there's talks of turning it into a movie, which of course she would be executive producer of. And the way these things kind of book to a movie, you're dealing with Hollywood. Um, she'd be making money just for organizing conversations about this. Like, yeah, we'll buy the rights to that. She gets money for that. Should it go forward into further and she be named executive producer of the project, she'll get a payday. Whether it ever airs or not, even when things are in development, money changes hands. So she is, she's always been a bit of a hustler, bit of a, you know, always doing something, though. That's one thing I guess you can give her credit for. The woman does work. The quality of her work leaves something to be desired, but she does work. However, so there's this controversy about the house, and people are angry, but the main point of it is, I think she bought the house thinking that after Philip died, they could get married. Chances are they're going to be kicked out of Windsor, so they needed a place to land. I think she was trying to plan the future. But it seems that Andrew isn't that keen on remarrying her. And we can look at some of the reasons why. First off, and I wouldn't put this at number one except for the fact that Andrew is a huge egotistical person. He's a narcissist, so this has got to be in consideration. If they got married again, it's such a non-issue. Nobody would pay attention. Oh, Sarah and Andrew are getting married again. There would be no press hoopla, no cameraman. It wouldn't be a big deal. It would be, a hiccup in royal history. Nobody would bother to pay attention because nobody cares about them anymore. So there's that kind of little blow to his ego. It's a real, just nothing event. Secondly, just on the face of things, she's been living with him for, with the exception of a couple of years there around separation, since they got married. Like, they've been living together for 30 years. So, why's he gotta go through the hoopla of marrying her? She's not going anywhere. So there's no point. But perhaps the biggest reason has to do with this blind item. We know very well Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein. But we didn't know that much, He claims Jeffrey Epstein wasn't that good of a friend, that it was, Ghislaine Maxwell that was his friend, and Jeffrey was a +1. Which, it's ridiculous anyway, but this is what he said. Is like, okay, buddy, how are you going to talk yourself out of this one now? It's the kind of thing. So, we know he had an association with Jeffrey Epstein. We know the kids and Sarah have been to Jeffrey's Island. We've seen pictures. Incidentally, we also know that Andrew had more than one friend with those predilections. Bring in Peter Nygaard. He's originally from, I don't know, Norway, I think, or one of the Nordic countries, but he was based in Canada, fashion mogul. And he had a private island. And he had the same predilection. And he also hosted Andrew and Sarah and the girls, and there's pictures online you can find. So they were jet-setting private islands with the P people and bringing their kids along. Now, about these accusations, or in the blind item, we do know that Jeffrey Epstein, because, I mean, it was reported in the papers, Jeffrey Epstein did give Sarah a substantial amount of money, thousands of dollars, to help towards putting down her debt. She had a lot of debts at the time. Now, if Andrew barely knew Jeffrey Epstein, wasn't what he would call a good friend, how did Sarah have the connection with him? And why would Jeffrey possibly give Sarah any kind of favor? Well, what the blind item suggests, and I've seen it other places before, and I've even talked about it, is that in return for the money, one of their children was supposedly handed over to spend some time with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, was this Sarah's doing? Was this Andrew's doing? Do they both know about it? Did Andrew learn about it later? Is he worried about this story gaining legs and Sarah's reputation hurt even further? Andrew doesn't want this brought up again. He would rather forget it, whether any of the allegations with Virginie Dufresne were true or not. This is something he certainly doesn't want revisited. And now that this is being talked about online, how long is it going to take before this is really investigated? And I think that's what Andrew's worried about. He doesn't want to marry Sarah if the danger of these allegations, that would bring them even closer to home, and is something that Andrew's trying to distance himself from. And I mean, we don't even know. Was it Sarah that cut this deal? Was it Andrew who cut this deal? Either way, it's despicable. But you know what? We may not know now, but we're gonna find out. Future's not looking too bright for Sarah Ferguson. Have a great day, everybody. Like, subscribe, share this video. Leave me a comment. I'd like to know what you think about all of this. Bye for now.